And that's when I was like, I've never seen Hamilton, and everyone went, "What?
You're missing out, bud.
Am I?"
You are. I mean, I
Okay.
feel like it's I mean, I didn't listen to it for the first year and a half it was out because I knew. I knew as soon as I listened to it, I was going to be hooked. And guess what
Okay.
happened?
I don't know if I'm so worried that I'll be hooked so much as like I'm just not a big musical guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I don't know.
get that, but I don't know. I feel like this one might get you. You can try the first
Okay.
few songs.
All right.
Give it a chance.
Well, I can watch it. I can watch it online because I feel
Oh
like I
yeah.
can't. Yeah. Anyway, welcome to another episode of the recap. The reason we are talking about Hamilton, the show, is because our most recent episode with Jesse Sir Philippi over at Skylar House
hmm
Mansion House.
I'm sure it's a mansion.
It's a mansion. Do they call it Skylar House despite it being a mansion?
I don't know.
I think it's Skylar House.
I
Either way,
think it is. They try to play it
our
down. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the Skylar duplex. Wait, what? No, that can't be right.
The Skylar crib.
Uh, yeah, the Skylar bungalow, if I may. This is a mess, man. This is awesome. So we were talking to Jesse Sir Philippi, who um, accidentally or not intentionally discovered a lot of really interesting things about Hamilton. And at the
Right.
time when her paper released, it wasn't necessarily so well received. Anyway, that's why we were talking about whether or not I should see the Broadway show.
Yes.
I can't do. Okay, last thing on this before we actually recap the episode. I can't do musical music
Oh.
without seeing the show. So like I'll have to watch the
Okay.
show.
Well, watch the first 20 minutes or so. And if it doesn't
Okay.
get you, you're free to let it go and you've done your part.
Okay. All right, Let It Go. Also a song from a musical.
Frozen was a musical?
Yeah.
Oh.
What is that movie about? Anyway, so Lynn, one of the things that I thought was really interesting off the bat, and we're just going to dive into it after a 5-minute monologue of the entertainment side of things. So this is actually a really serious podcast, right? This is it's an interesting one. It's a great. Uh, this fits our mold so perfectly as far as how it goes, and I know you're gonna tell me about it, or like one of the things that you were surprised by,
Mhm.
but I thought it was fascinating that the Manumission Society,
Mhm.
who their goal was to manumit enslaved people, essentially it was and this is a general statement. We're not going to say that it was all like this,
Mhm.
but it was a very slow moving organization.
Right.
So much so that it was kind of like they wanted the change to happen, but not fast enough that it would affect them.
Right.
Um, and that is so interesting to me, and it's kind of contextually speaking, as far as like how things are today. It's like I feel like there's a lot of we'll fix it down the road
Mhm.
kind of mentality. And it's interesting to see that like that was actually the case back then too.
Right. You say,
And it
"Oh,
really just
the
depends.
kids will take
Yeah.
care of it." Because that way you can accept it. You can get people to accept it because it's not actually going to
Hmm.
affect them. I mean,
Right.
it's people accept the fact that electric cars are being made. But if you had to go out and if everyone had to have an electric car within the year, there would be mayhem. But if you say, "Oh, well, we're gradually going to have different types of vehicles," people will go, "Oh, okay," and then they'll keep driving their own. Um,
Right.
so it's an easy way to get people to agree to change because change is, you know,
Sure.
scary to a
Or
lot of people.
it's easy to get people to agree to the idea of change.
Right.
Right.
Without having to
Yeah.
actually do it.
Yeah, that's crazy, but also like I totally see
Mm-hmm.
how that happens.
Right.
And one of the other things that I thought was really interesting is that like the wording of some of the letters
Mm-hmm.
that because I don't want to say too much about the episode. I mean, I guess it's a recap, but looking at the wording of letters that Hamilton had at the time. And in the context of it, like, him being married,
Mm-hmm.
where he was in his relationship, and really revisiting what was being said and how that changed the perspective. And it's interesting. I mean, I guess the modern analogy would just be like, look at the text messages,
Mm-hmm.
right? And can you get tone from just reading it without a larger context?
Right.
And gosh, the amount of times I've said context on our recap show alone.
The word of the
But it is
day.
just, I know, word of the day, word of the year, word of the series. It's always, it's always so freaking important. And it was really cool that uh, an individual person,
Mm-hmm.
just got a little creative and a new perspective really came out, and it's really cool. So,
Absolutely. No, I love what you say about the tone, because we can't get the tone from a letter, just like you can't from a text message. I think that's why people love emojis so much, because you can put the little
right,
smiley face and you're saying, even though this sounds snarky, smile. And I think that that's a big issue, which is why you need context with letters back then, because
right.
it was a different world. And they didn't
Y-
have emojis yet, unfortunately. They just had
or
the
or
finger
gifs, which I
pointing.
feel like express me even
Yeah,
better.
yeah. I would love to see the founding fathers create their own gifts. Yeah, that'd be pretty
Oh
awesome.
man, that'd be crazy. Probably would not be wouldn't make any sense to us. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Exactly. So then we'd have to try to interpret it, and then there'd just be
Yeah.
another 50 interpretations of
It's
one
like, why
image.
do I see a gif of someone just powdering a wig? Like, what does that even mean? That doesn't make sense to me. They're just dumping powder.
I'm so frustrated, white
I
wig.
know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, is that supposed to mean like angry? Is that supposed to mean like distraught? What's going on?
Or am I just being
Um,
fancy? Yeah.
right. So what really got you with the episode going back and revisiting?
Well, what goes along perfectly with what you were saying is this idea, and I think Jesse actually said it, that history is never done.
Mm,
Because you think, well, history is a set of facts and those aren't going to change. So, history was saying, most historians were saying that Alexander Hamilton was an abolitionist. And then here comes along Jessie, and she does some research and she finds, you know what? Maybe not so much. And so even though these are sources we've had for many, many years, even today, and I think it was 2020, because we've been doing this for so long, um, new interpretations were coming up about Alexander Hamilton.
hmm.
History is never done. It can always be reinterpreted, or um, I think as we progress through society and through time, we are able to understand things from the past better than the previous generations. And so
Sure.
I think it's necessary for every generation to look at history, not just as how other generations saw it, but as how we interpret it, because that's what history is. It's about human beings, and we are complicated, and we sometimes don't make any sense. We're not easy to understand. And history isn't just, okay, it's over, let's move on, because it impacts us even today. And I think that's really important to remember, and why we
Definitely.
should care about it. And
Yeah.
really, in that same vein, the other thing that really stuck out to me, I knew that with Hamilton and with, Washington and Jefferson's a bit iffy, but there are these hero narratives.
Hmm.
And I knew, because of the musical, that Hamilton had become very popular. But what surprised me was when Jessie did this excellent research, pulled out primary sources. She had her sources right there and made her argument from her primary sources, which is what historians do. She got a lot of backlash because people they didn't want to hear that their hero wasn't an abolitionist, because in today's world, abolitionists were correct, which I agree with,
Right. Right.
which
Right.
means
Right.
that I want all of my, heroes of the history to believe the same that I did. So it's really hard to, you know, see your hero Hamilton, Lin Manuel Miranda on the stage and say someone's trying to say he wasn't an abolitionist. Well, it becomes personal.
Right.
And the
Yeah,
fact that people were going, kind of social media going after her kind of took me a little bit aback.
yeah. And it's interesting how we do that. We just internalize other people as ourselves, and it's like that's the idea of something is not us, right?
Right.
Or maybe it is, but that's a philosophical debate for another time.
Exactly. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, that is so crazy. And it's you know I think it's a thing too where we want to look in the mirror and say like everything was good. We did the best we could
Hmm.
with what we had, and you know what? There's that's not always true. In fact, a lot
Absolutely.
of the times it's not true. But it's not about removing that from our history. Then, like, it's about acknowledging that and then figuring it out. I had a really good conversation with my wife last night,
Hmm.
and something came up, and I want to. Hopefully, I don't butcher this, but it was like her and her team were talking, and it was something about resilience. And resilience isn't just the ability to be um, strong in the face of adversity.
Hmm.
Resilience is the ability to look back and reflect on what happened during that time of adversity, and can you do better?
Right.
And I loved that. And I would hope that we as a society and as a country can be resilient in both ways, right?
Absolutely.
In adversity and in reflecting on it. And it's let me just say it's okay. It's not okay that those things happen, but it's okay to acknowledge that those things happened, and we have to move forward at some point, right? But just because your hero isn't who you thought, or it wasn't portrayed in a fun show. And by the way, Jesse did caveat the show is a great piece of art, so
Hmm.
enjoy the show. This doesn't mean you can't enjoy the show.
Absolutely.
Um, but you just have to be. You just need to know the context of everything.
Hmm.
You have to understand who he was. Um, Also, and to totally after that serious, very serious point, is there anything else you want to say? Because otherwise, I have one more reaction that I just thought was hysterical.
Okay. Let's see. I would just say that I don't remember, we were watching a movie the other night, and
Yeah.
the idea came up, how the movies, I think it was Men in Black, how they can erase your memory. And I was thinking that sometimes, yeah, that'd be great to not remember all the silly, awkward things or stupid things I said. But they taught me to be better and to not do that
Right.
again. So we want to remember our past because you learn from it. I think you learn more from mistakes than you do from successes. So I think that's sort of the microcosm of what you were saying. And so I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Fail
Yeah.
forward.
Hmm.
Right. It's a if you're not failing, you're not trying.
Exactly.
There's I'm actually Lynn. A little inside bit about me. I am moving. So this is the last recap you'll see in this space.
Hmm.
And I was just going to say the amount of self-help motivational books that I got, as a younger person that I have in my packed up in a box right now, as far as fail forward, if you're not trying, I got a whole slew of, would it be epitaph? Is that what it is? Or,
For
uh,
you, whenever does that
you're
sum up
like,
your
yeah,
life, the
no,
of
just
your
those
youth?
words. It's like a phrase or something that's like well known. Platitude.
There you go.
That's what it is. I have a bunch of platitudes I could definitely say. I think I don't know. Whatever. I'm not the academic. I'm the guy that turns on the camera. All right. I'm not. I'm not even that guy anymore. So you know what? Whatever. I'm useless. I'm just here to make sure everyone's things are working. Okay. So to immediately run away from that, the last thing, I just thought it was so funny that you all are so nerdy, and Isaac brought it up, and it is really interesting how it does add, dare I say, flavor to the idea that you all got excited seeing the ledgers of peaches or mutton, with lamb being purchased for dinner. And it's like, oh, that's the good stuff. Yeah, give me more of that.
Peaches. Who
I
doesn't
know
like a
you're
good
like,
peach cobbler?
oh my goodness,
Fresh
I know I
peach
love
off the
peaches.
tree. Oh, yeah.
I know my poor wife is. I think she's allergic to peaches. So
No.
I
More for
know,
you.
I know. Ha ha ha. Ha. Dude, I know a fresh peach in the summer. Whew.
Seriously.
And it was so interesting. You know what? Actually, one more reaction to this, because I know this is kind of a long episode. Whatever, we're having a good time. Was that like the ledgers are a more truthful, you know, source in some
Mhm.
regards rather than a letter. And it's
Right.
it's like, yeah, the follow the money.
Yeah, and there's no
Or
audience. So you're not trying to convince anyone of anything. You're not putting on any airs. It's just here's how I spent my money. That tells you a
yep.
lot about someone. I mean, look in I
Yeah, I
guess
mean,
I don't know if people still have checkbooks. Look on your online credit card purchases, your list, and that might sum up a lot about you.
look at your Amazon history.
There
Look
you
at
go.
your look at all of the marketing companies that are constantly
Mhm.
throwing things at you because they know exactly who you are based on what you bought,
Yep.
not based on what you do or say.
Every advertisement you see online, it's because they heard you say something or you bought something and
You bought
yep.
something. A lot of times it's just geolocation. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
That's crazy and a horrifying reality for another time. Um, so, Lynn, all in all, we say, you know what, Hamilton, maybe not as clean of a guy,
Right.
at least in the times, as he was being presented in the show.
Mhm.
However, the show is worth it.
Yes.
Also, check out our episode.
Yeah.
What is it called? Forgive me. The title,
The
"The Odious Immorality of Alexander Hamilton" with Jesse Sarfilippi, who she wrote a page or
an article. Yeah.
a paper and article. Boy, I'm doing great here. As odious and immoral a thing, Alexander Hamilton's hidden history as an enslaver. So it's a
Yes.
really interesting thing. It's linked in our show notes on the actual episode. Check it out at 2c4hpod.com. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen
Yes.
to it here on YouTube if you're already here watching this show. And yeah, let us know in the comments if you've gotten this far. Thank you. Let
Yes.
us know your favorite song from the Broadway musical.
Yes. And if you hate or love Hamilton and why.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we need to start asking these at the top
I
of the show.
know, yeah. Well, I'm sure everyone's
Get you
still
all
listening.
engaged. Yeah, totally. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Lynn. This has been awesome. And we will see you in 2 weeks for a really interesting episode.
Yes.
Um, a
Thanks,
surprise
guys.
episode. Yep. Bye.
Surprise.